Hi, I'm Stef Madgalinski. I head up the Developer Grants program at the Filecoin Foundation. After Juan's sort of either high Earth orbit or interplanetary view of public good funding, I think I'm going to give you the sort of 100-foot drone hovering view of the work that we do for funding within the grants program at the foundation. So what do we do? Basically two things, which is incentivizing the adoption of Filecoin, a bit of startup incubation in the Filecoin ecosystem, and helping to build out tools that make Filecoin easier to use for everybody. We used to fund, and the areas that we kind of focus on at the moment are developer and data tooling, integrations, so people putting Filecoin into some existing tool where that works, research and protocols, not getting so much of that at the moment, but we're always interested, and storage solutions, so anything that helps people data onboarding or storing data on Filecoin. We're also interested in retrievals, although again, we've not been getting that many grant applications in the retrieval section, and stuff on FVM. We used to fund, we revised the program, I think twice since I got involved, which was sort of March 2023. And we continue to revise it from time to time. We used to fund a lot of applications that we're just building on top of Filecoin. But over time, we've become more tightly focused on things that have multiplicative benefits to the developer community or the ecosystem. So if you're building a website that's a clone of some Web 2 thing and it just uses Filecoin at the back end, we insist that all our projects are open source, but the value of that open sourceness is basically view source, and that's it. You're not building a library or some bit of code that other people can reuse. I've actually realized I'm doing the slides right to left. So we fund in three main areas. We have the Open Grants program, which is the biggest block at the moment. Teams can receive up to $50,000 to fund a specific project, and we have multiple milestones to do that. That's not as great as it used to be. I think at one point we were funding things up to $500,000, but now we'd rather do smaller, give out more pots of smaller money, and maybe do iterations on that. We, from time to time, do requests for proposals where we'll have a specific bit of functionality in the ecosystem that we want built. We don't have an RFP open at the moment. The last one was for FVM and block explorers, but we might have another one coming up quite soon. And that's where we write out what we want, people can apply to build it, and we award that based on that. And then micro grants, which are very lightweight, up to $5,000. Oh dear. Apologies for that. The current microgrants program was actually it was kind of run by PL but administered by us, and it was for various bits developed on FVM. That's coming to an end, and we're I think we're going to launch a new program that's based around improving the documentation in the ecosystem. So basically, because I think we can probably get people to do good bits of documentation, writing a good tutorial, making sure that tutorial gets play tested with actual target audience developers so that we know that it works with its target audience, and creating new how-tos. And also I'm interested in people coming along and saying, I want to iterate on some of the stuff that's already on docs.filecoin.io because I know that there's bits in there that need a bit of love and maintenance. So we're planning to launch that on April the 1st. To give you some idea of the scale of the program, in financial year 2023, we awarded funds to 32 open grants projects. We funded a lot of things in 2022 that sort of ran into 2023 and sort of reached their completion there. So last year we had, at one point we had 120 active projects. Of those in the year, about 75 of them completed and went live. 22 projects are still active and building. 3 projects are overdue a check-in. And one thing we've observed is 21 projects completed but gone inactive, or they've shut down their repo, which is actually because as part of the grant agreement, we require that that your code is open source and you publish it on GitHub. We haven't quite figured out what mechanism we want to deploy to make sure that people honor that promise even after their project may have moved on to other things. Where we are right now in FY24, because we've tightened up the criteria, and I actually wanted the number of applications to come down somewhat, because we were getting a lot of applications in areas that we wouldn't want to fund. And all of that stuff is, every time I say no to a developer, it's like opportunity cost for them where they could have been doing something else. And so there's some balance between accepting 65% of applications and rejecting 87% of applications that I want to try and work out and be in the sweet spot for, so that we get the right balance. So so we have 10 proposals still in review right now, 5 proposals approved, and 32 projects in ongoing development. Actually, one thing about those, I'll talk about it in the application process in this next slide. So submission criteria and timeline, it's basically you fill out a GitHub issue. We try to make it as straightforward as possible. It seems to be working that aspect pretty well. When we get to the proposal review stage, I've been working quite hard to make sure that we have a better SLA with applying teams. We've had moments of this in the past where we've not been as great as we want, because we've had to put the program on pause for some small bits. But what we aim for now, when we publish this, is that if you submit in a given month, say in January, we will review and give you some feedback or a no by the end of the following month, so by the end of February. This means that actually, with today being February 29th, I've got to find some time in my day today to do some review of the last of January's applications. And then you'll get a no very quickly. If it's a yes, it can sometimes take a little bit longer for us to go through some internal approvals. And then we have a fairly standard contract that goes out for signatures, and we can usually turn that around in a couple of weeks. And then typically we don't pay out until the completion of the first milestone, but sometimes we will do a small amount of like pre-funding for people to get them kickstarted. And then the specific requirements we have, we do occasionally get people going, I want to apply for a grant, but we want to do it closed source, and that is that's pretty much a hard no for us. We insist on dual licensing under MIT and Apache for your code, and we don't really want to get involved in day-to-day management of your teams. We want you to show up at milestones with the stuff that you've done, because you manage your teams. And you can tell this slide is actually from one of the ones we do when we're talking to developers rather than the Dev Summit crew, because here's the application QR code. Few things that we're doing right now. We realized, actually with some feedback from Jenny, that there were some old pages on the grants GitHub that people were going to that were very out of date, and it looked like that the grants program was much less active than it really is. So we've deprecated those. We are deprecating this. Actually, one will like this, because we're going to deprecate grants.filecoin.io in favor of phil.org/grants, which have almost the same content on, but one less subdomain will do us loads of favors. So we're continually iterating the sort of the service that we give to grantees. We're starting to do a bit more. We've probably been a little bit, because of the reforming of the program and sort of narrowing the scope somewhat, not doing as much sort of developer outreach and onboarding as we would have liked, but we're kicking that off again, doing more stuff with hackathons, and starting to have like monthly office hours for potential grantees. Measuring long-term activity and impact. I'm glad Carl is here, because I was going to talk about the discussions we've been having with Open Source Observer. I think we've had like 150, maybe 200 projects go through the system. I'm really interested in trying to work out, are there any patterns we can learn about what kind of projects will be successful? And I'm quite happy to fund, and I think if a grant program like this shouldn't only fund winners. If we're only funding winners, we're not being adventurous enough. It's the same as everyone's heard me say this, but if you only good meals in restaurants, you're not being adventurous enough. You should occasionally have it go wrong. But I'm very interested in trying to work out like what kinds of projects succeed, what kinds of teams succeed, and then also just which projects have a life beyond the life of the grant. So which ones have that, and I'm looking forward to doing more work on that. The challenges that we have, I've sort of touched on these a bit. We did have these couple of program pauses that we had to do for operational reasons in 2023, and Both of those ended up taking longer than we originally planned. So we didn't live up to our own ambitions for happy grantees or happy applicants. So again, always improving the grantor experience and measuring long-term activity. Feedback, ideas, we're always welcome. Like categories of stuff we should do, anything that like doesn't seem to be working or whatever. You know, we continually iterating. And then I'm very interested to figure out like how the Filecoin Grants program fits into the RPGF universe and the other things that we're going to have today. Because at the moment we've been pretty standalone. We're a pretty traditional, you know, we give out pots of money type program. That's it. You can email the grants team, or you can email me, or come and see us in Filecoin Slack. Thank you.